Now, back to more of Behind the Scenes at the Hanover Theater. And your host, Lisa Condit.
Thank you all for listening today. I'm excited to be here talking with Eva Price. Eva Price is the lead producer for Cruel Intentions, the 90s musical. We're excited to have that coming to the Hanover Theater on Saturday, May 4th. 8 p.m. is curtain time. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Well, I am excited for Cruel Intentions because I have to say I am a 90s girl. So I remember the movie, and I love that it's become so popular for some of our favorite kind of cult classics to become musicals live on stage. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got the idea and what your involvement has been?
Sure. I mean, it's a true love letter to the film, as you suggest, and I too feel the same way. I've always loved the movie. It was hugely popular when I was in college, and I have clear memories of late at night watching it over and over and over. The creators of Cruel Intentions, the 90s musical, include the original director and writer of the film, and he was approached by the two other creators, Lindsay Rosen and Jordan Ross. And they had been 90s kids as well, who had always had this fantasy of making it into a musical. And actually, as a lark, without rights or permissions, but really just for fun, they threw it up at a bar one night in Los Angeles in 2015, I think it was, because they had a vision that it could play like a musical, especially with a 90s soundtrack. I mean, the movie film soundtrack was always really popular, and people really loved it. Plus, there were, really classic songs from the movie that people always equated to the movie, like Bittersweet Symphony.
Right.
So they put it up for a night at a bar. It caught fire, and people said, you got to keep doing this. So they did it again a few weeks later at the bar. Eventually, Roger came, as did the original producer of the film, Neil Moritz, and said, guys, we actually tried to theatricalize this several years ago after the movie was popular and couldn't figure it out, and you've now done it. So they were very excited, got the blessing and the permissions, and then a mutual friend told me about it and made an introduction to Lindsay and Jordan. And, I can't let a good idea go by the wayside. And it sounded not only like a good idea, but pretty brilliant. And I remember it was right around the time of the 2016 election. The election had come and gone, and you had a lot of people looking for some escapism and some joy and perhaps news of a better day, depending on what side of the aisle you are, and, needed some nightlife and fun. So I decided to put it up similarly in a bar for 4 nights in New York City just to see if it would catch fire again, and it did, and that led to our 6-month, thrice extended off-Broadway run, now to our national tour.
Which is totally cool and exciting. It makes me wonder, too, what was the magic formula? What did this team do that really helped it take off when previous creative geniuses hadn't quite hit the mark? So what was that secret sauce?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the secret sauce is actually the simplicity of it. What they decided to do was not to alter the screenplay, but to play those classic lines and those classic beats from the movie word for word, ethos for ethos, tone for tone. And then you couple that magic that existed in the script and on screen with the songs from the 90s that maybe not necessarily were in the film, but actually speak to moments in the film, like when Annette, famously gets hit on by Sebastian and tries to rebuke him. We use in the musical, I'm Just a Girl. And that's a perfect sort of moment for both storytelling and familiar musical trope. And it's sort of that mashup of staying true and sticking close to what the ethos of the film was with the screenplay, but also using what is so brilliant about musical theater, which is having great songs further plot and further emotion in a moment. And this creative team just found the greatest balance between the actual script and the story we were telling with great 90s hit songs that we all love, that can do the job that musical theater needs to do.
That's awesome. And you hit a couple of different nails on the head that I know our audiences are going to love. And that is that fresh new take on 90s music that we are so familiar with. And we all relate to some of those songs that you were mentioning, and we apply them to what we see. And so to see musical theater and a touring Broadway show come and use some of our favorite music to bring our favorite movies alive, that seems like a home run to me. You mentioned a couple of your kind of favorite moments in the show. Are there others that other people on your team really love that you would like to mention?
Well, there's so many. There really is.
Well, that's good.
It is really good. I will say that there's a really magical moment in the show that we call Catherine's Turn, which is a little bit of a play on Rose's Turn from Gypsy. So anyone who's like a real musical theater lover will know what that means. And what that essentially means is it's a classic trope in a musical theater piece where the protagonist sort of has a revelation, an emotional and intellectual revelation about their life and their wants and who they are and their place in the story. And if you know the story of Cruel Intentions, which is a play on La Liaison Dangereuse, there is a moment where the female protagonist sort of is unraveling and decides to make a really strong choice that then puts the story on a whole other direction. And in our musical, we've created a medley of really powerhouse, power ballad, female-centric songs that do that. And what's so brilliant about that scene is it's the perfect combination between what you would want in a true classic musical theater piece, but we're using the best songs of the 90s to show that unraveling and to show that storytelling point, that it really is like a mashup of what you love in pop and what you love in musicals.
Well, this sounds so fun, and I know that our audiences are going to love it. So if you've just tuned in, we're speaking with Eva Price. She's the lead producer for Cruel Intentions, which is coming to the Hanover Theater on Saturday, May 4th. Again, that's Cruel Intentions, the 90s musical. We do have tickets available on our website, which is the Hanover Theater. We spell theater with an RE.org. Thank you so much, Eva. Is there anything else that you want our listeners to know before we have to say goodbye?
Well, I will say I grew up just down 495 in Chelmsford, Massachusetts.
Westford, Eva, Westford. That's so
My
funny.
father's a graduate of Worcester Polytech,
Awesome.
and I have cousins also from Worcester. So to bring a show back to Northwest Massachusetts area makes me really, really happy, because when I grew up and was finding my way in the 90s with this music, I was living down the block from the Hanover Theater. So I feel great about being here together.
And you know what? Wait until you see what has happened to Worcester. It is going to blow your mind. We've got awesome restaurants in addition to this really beautiful theater, and the whole area has come alive. So if you haven't been here for a while, you are going to love it, Eva.
That's great. I can't wait to be back.
All right. Well, thank you so much for taking the time today. Everybody stay tuned. We'll be back after this quick break here on WCRN AM 830.